Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a very, very, very big Chelsea match preview, predicted 11, whatever you want to call it. Not only is it a huge game, potentially one of the biggest games we'll have all season long, we're also joined by two very, very special guests. Of course, a returning guest. Well, both are actually returning, funnily enough, but a more regular guest in Mr. ConnCFC. First of all, Con, thank you for being here again. We missed you the other day, but we hope you're feeling better. And I'm just glad you're back on. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, always a pleasure, bro. I'm getting there, bro. I'm getting there. But just happy to talk about some Chelsea, bro, as always.
Brilliant. And of course, as you can see on screen, the man that's made a rise in fame over the last few weeks and last few months, Mr. Zac Djellab. I hope I didn't butcher the surname. I know you told me last time I said it right, but I'm not sure it feels right for me. I feel like I must be butchering it. But of course, a returning guest as well. He has been on once before. Can't talk anymore. We were just talking off air when it was. We can't really remember. April, May, something like that. But first of all, Zac, thank you for coming on again. Appreciate it a lot. And how you doing? And are you excited for the game? Because it really, really is a big game, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, huge game. I mean, this early having. If you'd told me we'd be where we were when I'd first seen the fixture lists, and essentially this already be such a big 6-pointer, I would have snapped your arm off to take it, and it's happened, and it's gone really, really well. But yeah, no, Manchester City is always going to be a tough fixture, especially when Pep's the manager.
I know, it really is. It really is. Obviously, part of what we're going to discuss now is the fact that, it's almost created this like in Premier League rivalry between Tuchel and Pep Guardiola, of course, having played them 3 times in the last 6 weeks of the past season. And then obviously they already had a bit of a rivalry going on when Pep was at Bayern Munich, Tuchel was at Dortmund in Germany. But then obviously he had a really poor record against Pep. And it was like he only beat him like once, or did you never beat him or whatever, until he first beat him with us. And like I just touched on, we played them, 3 times in the last 6 weeks of the last season. And we beat them 3 times in the FA Cup semi-final. Fortunately, we lost the final in the end, but hey, still. In the FA Cup semi-final, in the Premier League with obviously Alonso's late winner. And then in the big one, in the Champions League final, which of course Zac was actually attending, not only attending, man was just flowing along by Chelsea, It's what you do. It's just what you do. So before we get into that itself, I do want to ask you a few things because I'm sure people will like to hear, because I'm sure it's interesting. First of all, how was that going to the Champions League final? Not just as a fan first and foremost, of course, but did it make it a bit more surreal that you kind of went out there with Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, add to the fact that it was like during COVID as well. It was a limited number of fans. It was a dream, like it really was. Like I couldn't. Every single day was crazy. It was busy as well, but like also great to see kind of like Porto. I hadn't obviously left the country since God knows how long before that as well. To go see that. I mean, I kind of went there with the expectation of like, as long as Chelsea put a good performance in, win, lose or draw, whatever happened. Well, can't draw, win or lose. I was going to go home happy. I really was. I kind of felt like where we were in that final was probably about 2 years ahead of what I was expecting anyway. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, to then go and win it and to kind of like have just a crazy time, like the celebrations afterwards was great fun. Yeah, mental. I mean, I don't think I got back to the hotel until like 7 a.m. and we had to leave at like 10.
Love that. But like you said, to be fair, it's one of those going into the game. You hate finals because if you win, they're the greatest thing ever. But if you lose, they're like the worst thing ever. Like you'd much rather lose in, say, a round of 16 than lose in the final. Like just going back to what we all experienced in 08. Like you don't want to have that, especially not on penalties like that. But thankfully, we came out on top. It was a brilliant night, probably even better for you than it was for us watching from home. But still, it was fantastic. I'm wondering, actually, at the time, did you already know that your role with Chelsea TV was going to increase over the summer, or did that kind of just happen during the summer?
It all, what, with Chelsea, it all just kind of happens. Like, there's a few people behind the scenes that like control different things, and like they just basically got in touch with me and yeah, made like, do you want to come and stuff like this? Like you've done pretty well this year with the interviews and that. Do you want to come to Porto and make this content over there as well? Host a fan thing there as well. And I was like, yes, please, like 100%. And yeah, like I can't thank everyone enough behind Chelsea and everyone that like watches the stuff. It's all like crazy. And yeah, I mean the whole, as I said, the trip in general was nuts. But I mean, I was kind of thinking that because it was weird. I remember thinking there was no part of me that wanted to imagine like what we would do if we lost. because we'd speak, because beforehand there was obviously several people there, like the Chelsea photographer who's been doing it for years and years. Like he went to like John Terry's wedding and Lampard's wedding, all this stuff, and he's like sitting there the day before telling you like these crazy stories, like brilliant stories, some that I can't really say, but like really like interesting stuff. And it's just like, God. And I remember thinking, I was like, God, if we lose, like, what are we going to do tomorrow when we come back to the hotel? It's going to be so sad. But yeah, no, thankfully that didn't happen, and we pied the night away.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then obviously you were also doing like interviews. I forgot the co-host's name. I do apologize. I should remember it. But who was your co-host with the interviews?
Well, so it depends. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's Dan, sometimes it's both of us. But yeah, Savage Dan's normally the other guy. There you go. But then obviously during COVID, like you just touched on, you had to, I suppose, do all of those via COVID, which I'm sure was sick as well. But obviously during the summer, you started to do a few things in person as well, including the Lukaku interview. And, you know, obviously Lukaku doesn't really get bigger as a signing as that. But how's he in person? I mean, was there a moment where you could like have even a 10-second, 30-second like quick chat? Or was it just like sit down interview and he's off? I mean, he was a busy, like it was like 2 days, I think, after he'd signed. So he was a busy boy. Sure. But like I've been very lucky to meet a lot of footballers, and I like don't get nervous or anything like that. But the only person I've experienced that had that kind of aura about him when he walked into the room was Thierry Henry. I remember we were doing this thing for Football Daily, and Thierry Henry walked in, and he was like, "Hi, I'm Thierry," and like shook everyone's hands. I'm like, "Yeah, I know who you are, mate. Don't worry." But there's the same with Romelu. Like Romelu came in, was like saying hello to every single person, like the production people behind the scenes. And what was really cool as well, it was done whilst tours were still going on around Stamford Bridge. So these people who had like booked tours just to go around the bridge had this amazing experience where they went and then also saw Romelu Lukaku experience being his first time being back on the bridge. And like it was this really nice like moment. But yeah, no, we spoke a little bit, and he was just like, I've never quite obviously, like, I've done videos with Mason Mount and like these guys who are fans of the clubs, and they're amazing. But like with Romelu, it was weird. It felt as if like for him, like he'd been through this whole journey of like obviously leaving the club for playing for United, then leaving, going to Italy, and now coming back. And like some of the things he would say were like so like quotable. Like he loves like a good quote where it's like, I've worked so hard, and rightly so, but he's like, I worked so hard to get here, I can't wait. Like one of the things that we organized on the day was he would go onto the pitch, like so to get onto the pitch at Stamford Bridge, it's not like it takes a bit of planning from behind the scenes and everything. And bless Chelsea, like they'd got it signed off for Romelu to do, and then Romelu and like he did this in the nicest way, like he was like, oh, I'm so sorry, but he was like, I don't want to go onto the pitch until I first play against Aston Villa. He wanted to wait for that moment, and yeah, obviously he's gone on to be hugely successful so far in such a short period of time.
That's sick, yeah. But I do hear what you're saying there with the almost like talking full of quotes. Like obviously he's an experienced player now, but if you compare it to a normal human that's 28 is not old by any means at all, right? Mm-hmm. But the way he acts, the way he speaks, or at least the way he comes across in videos, obviously, I haven't met him. He doesn't come across like a 28-year-old, right? He seems way more mature. It's like a philosopher, the way he speaks, like you just said with the quotes. It's like, how are you so thought out about everything you say, but still come across so genuine, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, one of the like he's in this really interesting period where like obviously with Mason Mount and Reece James, these guys that are kind of like the youthful side, and as you said, Lukaku is still youthful, but he had that experience of being able to play with Didier Drogba, with Frank Lampard, with John Terry. Like he knows that era of Chelsea, like obviously arguably the greatest era we've ever had of players, and so like he understood that, like he learned so much from them, and now you see him kind of like, I remember there was a video Chelsea put out like maybe 2-3 weeks ago where they were doing shooting drills afterwards, and like you could tell he's already like got into it. He's like pulling Mason Mount one, and like he's like, keep this same energy tomorrow, keep this same, like, and so he's already come in. And like for some players, joining a club is difficult, right? There's so much change, obviously leaving a country, like but for Romelu, like he still knows everyone at the club. Everything's like he said it was weird because it was like it's the same but also different at the same time. But he's like fit in so well from all I've heard. Like some of the guys that film the chat, like all the training stuff as well. Like I speak to them, I get on with them really well, and they were like absolutely lovely. He's always like happy, like always happy, like always asking us how we are and things like that. That's one thing Tuchel's like, and Lampard did as well, and a lot of managers I would assume, but is they always want to make sure that they keep that the players and all treat the staff brilliantly as well. And yeah, like Romelu's come in and continued that same kind of process.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant to hear those stories, because not all of us like get to talk to Romelu, and I think obviously we see a lot in the interviews and in the videos, but I still think it's good to like almost have it confirmed that he doesn't just come across nicely. He is actually like nice and gets involved in it.
And he's such a fanboy. I can't put into words how much of a fanboy he is of Chelsea. Like, like he legitimately came back and he was just like I can't wait to play. Like he was saying, like, I cannot wait to like score in front of the fans and like and hear that celebration of everyone supporting him. Like every time, I think we saw it in every game actually. Every time the Chelsea fans like sing his name, you see how much it means to him. Like it means so much for him to kind of to hear that, and because especially for him, right? He's wanted this since he was like 13 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Stamford Bridge, and to now like finally have it and looking like it's going successful so far. I mean, I can only imagine how that feels. Exactly,
it's weird because I had that idea of him when he was first with us, and even then when he left for Everton. But then obviously when he was at Everton, and that was when we ended up signing Morata in the end, there was like we were trying to sign him, and then that didn't happen. Yeah. And obviously that famous video with him and Pogba out in LA when they kind of announced that he was going to United, and the fact that obviously we didn't know quite all the ins and outs at the time, but the fact that he ended up going to United, then I'm like, okay, maybe this love for Chelsea has slightly faded a bit, as it does with a professional career. But now that he finally has come back, it's like, first of all, I still find it weird how that move could possibly have not happened. I know Raiola and stuff, and he's not his agent anymore, thankfully. But still, if he wanted to come back so much, it's still weird how much power some of these agents have. Is off-putting, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but now he is back. I'm excited.
I would say, like, because one of the things he mentioned as well, he kind of says that, like, that we obviously there were rumors about him coming back in that time too. But as he kind of said, like, he's now, I think, with Rock Nation, and he like loves talking about Jay-Z and when he's met Jay-Z and that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, I from everything that I've seen from him, like, he's the biggest Chelsea fan that could be there.
Exactly, and I think it's great to see. And Jay-Z, Zac Djellab,
What about that?
But let's get actually on to the big game tomorrow. By the way, also the super chat by David, appreciate it a lot. Big up the panel, appreciate it. If any of you guys want to support the channel and use the super chat function, of course, you're always very welcome to. And if you want to, make sure, if you have any questions or whatever that you would like us to discuss, any topics, of course, use the super chat function for that as well. But let's get into the game. Obviously, we hinted on it at the start already. But Con, let me get to you. Sorry, I did have to ask Zach a couple of questions here. But it's been a great start to the season for Chelsea. Obviously, against Villa, it was on penalties. And, we were discussing it the other day before the Carabao Cup game. Is the Carabao Cup that big? But in hindsight, after we won the game, I was like, it was important that we won that game, because especially before playing City, you wouldn't have wanted us to lose that kind of momentum. And I think even if it was on pens and not like a convincing win over 90 minutes on Wednesday, it's still important that we got that win, in my opinion. Obviously, City have had a few struggles. Obviously, they lost against Tottenham on day one. They dropped points against Southampton the other week. Even if, their win against Wickham was quite comfortable, and obviously in the Champions League, they've been doing well. But it's still crazy, the position that we're in. And in my opinion, if Reece James doesn't get sent off against Liverpool, we're on maximum points right now. So it's been crazy. Like I was, before the season started, I was hoping and thinking, yeah, we could really go for this title. But let's see how the season goes. Injuries, a bit of luck. Will we actually be there? But now, even though it's just 5 games in, I don't know. Tuchel and the team have just built this confidence and this calmness into me. I'm like, whatever game we go into, I'm like, probably going to win anyway. Like, it's just that's what I feel now. But Con, do you feel the same? Is it the same even though it's City? And is it just like, we're going to beat them a 4th time? Or is it a case of we beat them 3 times, we're not going to beat them a 4th time?
With City, I'm not scared about City as much as I used to be honest. After Tuchel and Pep, it's a good battle that. I'm always a bit optimistic now when we go against City. I'm more afraid of playing like a Liverpool. I ain't going to lie to you. And I don't think football works like that, where we've beat them a certain amount of times and now it's their turn to get a game. I don't think football works like that. And I haven't been too impressed with them this season. I can't lie. I know they had a massive score midweek, but the quality they was playing was awful, wasn't it? So, and they were starting players like Morris. He started, which surprised me. But
it's a very weird lineup. It's like their defense was all kids, and then their midfield three and front three was all basically their starters. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I was really confused by that, considering they have us on the weekend. So I don't know, man. Like, I'm going into it optimistic as always. I think we can beat City. I think Werner will cause problems as he always does. He's so annoying to Pep. Probably hates the sight of seeing Timo. Mendy should be back as well, which is a massive plus for us as well. And yeah, I'm full of confidence. And like you said, that win against Villa was big, not just because the Carabao Cup. I think out of all the competitions we're in, that's probably the one we least care about, let's be honest. But to go like on a win and how we did to City is always a good thing. You know, you want that confidence in the team. And lastly, it's always better playing City when they're off a win than when they're off a loss, in my opinion.
That's true.
When they have a loss and they come back, they're like, what's that Rodri quote? Like, we want to kill the next team we play, or some crap like that, he said, remember? So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really optimistic.
That is fair. That is fair. It's a good point, really. Like, even with us, like once we lost the game, obviously there have been certain times when you're just on a bad run, you're on a bad run. But if it's just a one-off loss, you don't want to be the next game we play usually, and it's probably a little bit similar for City. Would you agree with Con's sentiments there, Zach? That it's not, sure, if rolling a dice, at some point you're getting lucky and at some point you're not, but each game is an individual football game. So do you not see it as, okay, we've beat them 3 times, it's unlikely we're going to beat them a 4th time?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. I think if you do go into games like that, then I don't think you're probably a football manager, to be quite honest. Like, risking it on just kind of, we've beat you before, so we'll beat you again. Things change, and if anything, it's even harder because he's played your system even more now, right? He's analysed how you play against them even more now than other previous teams. And with Pep as well, like, we know how much he kind of dislikes like the media at times and these kind of narratives around him about having a guy that he can't beat and all this kind of stuff. So he'll want nothing more than to put that to bed and take 3 points from us and gain 3 points for himself. So yeah, I think City are always, as long as Pep Guardiola's there, I think they're always going to be a threat against us. Like, I still have nightmares about when we lost 6-0, to be quite honest. I don't think with Tuchel that's going to be anywhere near like that, but it's going to be a competitive game. For sure. I mean, it's one of those games that very much can come down to an individual and who's playing, really. I mean, I saw earlier that Tuchel said there's going to be no Mason Mount, which then kind of leads you to believe that, okay, we'll probably do a midfield 3 of Jorginho, Kante and Kovacic. So maybe that will win us it, or maybe that will lose us it and stuff like this. So yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting that he's revealed that already. Like, I think maybe if I was the manager, I would have kind of like not said that just so that Pep had no idea. Otherwise, because now Pep kind of sits there and goes, okay, they've not got Mason Mount.
But what if it is all mind games? What if Mason Mount is not injured? Precisely,
yeah. Maybe it is that. Like, some of football is a huge part of that. I mean, Jose Mourinho was one of the biggest guys to do that. I think even Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, maybe not to the same level, has tried doing that as well. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fantastic game. I mean, I'm not too sure if they've got any injuries or if they're missing any players. They
do have a few doubts as far as I'm aware.
Okay, who are they?
Rodri's a doubt. Gundogan is a doubt. I think Fernandinho is a doubt. There's a few others because it's weird because I put the question to both of you guys. This is our 4th time, whatever. I actually think the fact that we beat them 3 times makes us more likely to beat them again, because the way Pep is, a bit like you touched on there, Zach, he hates all this narrative around it. And if there's one thing that Pep sometimes gets wrong, is overthinking it. And I feel like the fact that we beat him 3 times in a row, him playing 3 different systems in those 3 games, by the way, I think there's a chance he overthinks it so much that he goes real wrong for them. Obviously, I could jinx it now, and I hope I'm not, touch wood, but you get where I'm coming from, because I still find this narrative hilarious that people just say the only reason City lost is because they didn't start a DM. I'm like, so why did they lose with a DM against us in 2 weeks before? And why did they lose another 2 weeks before that when they played 2 DMs? Clearly, the DM is not the decisive factor whether they win against us or not. Otherwise, why didn't they smack us in the other games? So And with a couple of injuries, will he risk like someone that's a little bit of a doubt? Will he not? It's going to be super fascinating. It's going to be super fascinating. We're going to get to a predicted 11 in a minute as well, where we're going to discuss, are we going to do midfield 3? Are we going to do, again, a front 3? And who could feature in that? Because you mentioned it there. Obviously, Mason Mount is out injured now, at least officially. Christian Pulisic, unfortunately, is still out as well. Hopefully, he'll come back soon. But the good news is Edouard Mendy is back. But just quickly before we, get onto the predicted 11, just a quick shout out to Kepa, because Kepa had a lot of times at Chelsea over the last couple of years where you received a lot of stick and, had poor form, and you could see it in his confidence. But I'm just glad to see that he's like, back to kind of the Kepa we saw in his first season here, where he's like confident, mouthing off to the players in the penalty shootout, getting under their skin and clearly working. I mean, the fact that he's now has more penalties saved in a penalty shootout than Petr Cech is outrageous. Like, obviously, it also suggests that we've played more penalty shootouts. It probably helps that cup rounds now go straight to penalties rather than extra time anymore. So, obviously those facts, sway the stats a little bit, but still, the fact that he's overtaken Cech in that stat is crazy to me. So big shout out to Kepa. He did good, but I think we all agree that we feel that tad more comfortable with Mendy in goal. So I'm not exactly displeased with Mendy being back. But let me just get this up on screen so we can discuss the predicted 11. But Con, is there anything crazy you're expecting, or are you kind of not sure what to really expect from tomorrow? Because I touched on it there. There's a chance, Pep overthinks it. But now that we've started to play this midfield 3 a bit more, even though Tuchel keeps saying it's the same system when it's just not. I don't know why he keeps saying this, but anyway. We've kind of now, even though it's not a back 4, which a lot of us were hoping for before the start of the season maybe, we've still started to switch between 2 formations now. So, usually we always had our predicted 11s and we always knew, okay, it was going to be the 3-4-2-1 under Tuchel. It's just a question of who plays in those positions. But now it's 2 formations. So do you have a feeling which one we'll go for, Con? Or do you have a preference for which one to go for, especially with the injury news that we have at least?
See, I'm torn because I don't know whether we're going to have a Werner, Lukaku and Kai front 3 tomorrow. Or are we just going to have a Kai and Lukaku, or Werner and Lukaku up top? So I'm not sure. I'm 50-50 on that, to be fair. Don't know about you, though, but I'm split.
It's a tough one. I mean, Zac mentioned it there. We could just go with the all of our midfield 3, if that makes sense, and play the other guys up top. It's a tough one to call for me. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. That'd be massively appreciated. We're getting ever closer to 12k subs, and then obviously the next milestone of 15k. Smash the like button as well. I've said this before. Having not streamed, having gone on holiday and the international break and stuff, killed me in the algorithm a bit. So if you could smash the like button to push me back up, that'd be great, because unfortunately that's how YouTube works. So the engagement is just good. So smash the like button. That'd be great. And of course, check out Zac's channel, to which the link is down in the description. He doesn't upload all the time, but I will say the videos that I have seen, they're good. So check them out. And obviously check out Con on Twitter as well, because we need to get that guy to his 100k Twitter followers. We need to make this happen. But let me just get this share screen going on here so we can start talking about the lineup. Not sure why I'm speaking like a choppy something, but anyway, I've just put it in the 3-4-2-1 for now. Obviously we will discuss what we get to. Thomas Tuchel has pretty much confirmed that Mendy will be in goal, which is, like we just touched on, very good. But the back 3 is already where we have a few questions, in my opinion. I mean, the left side of centre back, sure, we know that's going to be really good, let's be honest. But because of the last game, Reece James having played at right side of centre back in the back 3, and also having done so against Manchester City in the Champions League final, do you guys believe he's going to play him there again? Because, well, I said because it worked before, I suppose, and also might that have been the reason why I played him there against Villa midweek? I'm not sure, but I do see it as a possibility. But then where does Christensen go? Because does then Christensen not play? Because with Thiago's form, he's going to play, isn't he? So, Zac, what would you reckon is going to be our back 3 tomorrow?
I think it'll be a Thiago Silva, Azpilicueta in those last 2 positions, personally. And then, I'd probably expect Reece James to go right wing back. But then I also wouldn't be shocked.
So obviously in the Champions League final, we did it the other way around. Aspie was the wing back and Reece James plays centre.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised if he did then maybe a Christensen and then Aspie right wing back. We know like how when it's the games of bigger magnitude with star attackers, he likes to be a bit more safe with Aspie being the right wing back and not pushing on as much as Reece does. But I mean, you'd also then look in the game against Aston Villa, and Aspie can still make that killer ball. But that if I had to pick one, that would probably be my back three.
It's interesting because I'm not a betting man, but if I was a betting man, if there'd be any money to put on who'd be right wing back, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Aspie. I'm just not sure whether the right centre back is going to be, like you just said there, Christensen or Reece James, because I feel like the reason we didn't play Aspie in the final already is because we were a bit scared of their pace, especially on the left with Sterling or Grealish, and Aspie probably being the slowest of those three of Christensen, Reece James and Aspie. Even though you'd think, like logically, especially if you're thinking FIFA terms, the wing back needs to be fast, but not really, because the wing back, we have possession, we control things anyway. They have time, not necessarily, obviously when we're getting hit on the counter, but when we're getting hit on the counter, that's the point of the back three. So if your right side of centre back has pace, you're fine. So I'm really not sure. I think Aspie's going to be the right wing back, but I'll happily
let you put Aspie right wing back and maybe a Reece James centre back.
Fair. Do you reckon it's going to be Reece at right centre back after he played there midweek, or do you think Christensen comes back into the shout there?
I think it's going to be Andreas, just for the fact we've seen that back three before this season, and we haven't seen Reece besides Villa play in that back three, and I just think Christensen, I don't know, he just gives you that more security. He's been outstanding this season, and for a game like this, I want Christensen to play. So I reckon it'll be Aspie, like you guys think, will be the win back, and Rudiger, Silva, Andreas back three.
I do see that. It's a tough one, really, isn't it? Because Tuchel has put us, not in a negative way at all, but has put us into a position where Aspie's almost a guaranteed starter. It might not always be the same position, but he's a guaranteed starter. He wants his captain on the pitch. If Thiago's fit, he has to play. And both Christensen and Reece James have kind of both been absolutely brilliant, but only one of them can play if you have Silva and Aspie starting. So it's a tough one. I think part of playing Reece there against Villa is to play with Pep, to make Pep doubt what we're going to do, if that makes sense. Because like I touched on, we did do exactly that with Reece James here and Silva and Christensen on the bench in the Champions League final. So I don't really know. I'm just going to put that because I honestly have no idea, and also because us three have kind of differing opinions. I'm not really sure what to go for on screen, so I'm just going to put both, because why not? Who's going to stop me? Exactly. But let's move on to the left wing back, because that's an interesting one as well, if you ask me, because obviously Chilwell finally came in and got his start for the first time since obviously the Champions League final, funnily enough, in which he was brilliant, and generally at the end of the season he was absolutely fantastic for the most part. I mean, sure, he had a bit of a dip when most of the team did during the winter period, but he started the season incredibly well as well on the Frank Lampard, getting so many goal involvements, goals, assists. Weirdly, less goals and assists from wing back than he had from normal left back, which is interesting. But while he was decent against Villa midweek, especially Alonso's second half against Spurs was really strong, and Alonso in general has just been really strong. Maybe not against Villa in the league and against Zenit, but in the other games Alonso has been really strong. So personally, I'd expect Alonso to keep his place. Would you agree, Con?
No, yeah, I fully agree. Alonso's been great. Chilwell didn't look the best against Villa, can't lie, but it's his first start of the season, so it was expected. So yeah, go with Alonso. He's been on good form. He's played a lot of minutes, and he scored the winner against City last season as well. So that'd be my bet.
That is very true. That is very true. I mean, I do, just to clarify this, I do think Chilwell is a better player than Alonso. But I just think on current form and with, just how confident they seem and how much they've played, I think it just makes more sense for it to be Alonso. Would you agree, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, Alonso seems to do this. He'll have months where he plays the best you'll ever see, and you'll be arguing he's the best left wing back in the world again. And he's having that period right now. I think it's harsh on Chilwell, bless him. I think he's had a rough time because he was unfortunate maybe not to get a game at the Euros. I thought obviously Luke Shaw was fantastic, but I thought maybe when Kieran Tierney, when played left back, I was shocked that Shaw didn't get a start there. And then obviously he's
that game against Ukraine, you was 4-0 up after an hour. Why wouldn't you give him a minute? You know how Italy even brought their third goalkeeper on just to give him some minutes. I'm surely Southgate, a bit of man management, just especially now that Tuchel tells us Chili's basically depressed because of it. I'm cheers, Gareth. Cheers, lad.
Yeah. I mean, it was very, very odd. I mean, I was confused, but then obviously that means that he hasn't played a lot of football, so he's got to get his fitness back up after the summer holidays as well. And so, yeah, I think he's at that level now. I'm sure probably over this period, especially once we get into October, November, December, and you've got games coming thick and fast, we'll be seeing him back in there. But for this game, I probably expect Alonso. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for Juve, obviously, midweek. I feel like then when we're going to do the preview for that, then it's going to be a real, like, who's he going to be? Maybe a bit more than 50-51 now. All of us three seem to agree on Alonso. But now we get to arguably the most difficult part, because not only do we have to pick the players from midfield, we have to decide how many midfielders we're going to have, right? And where Loftus-Cheek is going to start. No, I'm joking. But people know I love Ruben. So, yeah, I was very pleased on Wednesday, even if I don't care about the Carabao Cup. The fact that Ruben played and played well, I was gassed. Do you know what I mean? I was absolutely gassed. I think we can be sure about two players starting. One's Jorginho, the other one's Kante.
Yes.
I mean, I'm pretty sure of that anyway. You boys might disagree. You can tell me in a second. The question is just like Zach mentioned a little bit earlier, is the other one just going to be Kovacic and we're going to play a 3, because why not? Or are we just going to stick with the 2? So I'll go back to you, Zach. Obviously, you mentioned it earlier. So do you think that's the midfield we're going to go with? Or do you reckon it's going to be a midfield 2 and a front 3 in front of them?
I mean, I probably wouldn't bet my house on it, just because that's what it's like with Tuchel, man. Like, the first time you think, oh, I've got it locked down, I know exactly what it's going to be, he changes it completely. So, but with how things have gone, and with obviously Mason Mount being injured, Christian Pulisic not being ready just yet, Timo Werner playing a full 90 against Aston Villa, full 90, yeah, I think so.
Full 90, and even had a bit of a cramp in his calf, which he said after was the reason he didn't take a pen. So
precisely. So I think we'll go with that. That's how I think. Yeah, I think we'll probably go with a Kovacic, Jorginho, Kante midfield. Obviously, Kovacic was rested as well in the Aston Villa game, which kind of leads you to believe that Kante came off after half-time. So personally, that's how I think it'll go, yeah.
I'm usually the guy to say, midfield 2 is fine. I don't need that midfield 3. It's even more defensive than, the 3-back thing already is. But two things. Number one, the fact how well that worked against Spurs in the second half. Sure, it was also Spurs getting tired and stuff after pressing very heavily in the first half. But also, going into the game, we are 3 points ahead of City. And I know it's very early in the season. It is only the 6th game of the season. But if you look at I think people sometimes underestimate recently how even this early in the season, a game can be title decisive, because look at how many points City and Liverpool had over the last few seasons when they won the league. The teams that win the league at the moment, they don't drop that many points. So you can say, sure, it's only 6 games in, but one win that's a loss instead can be those 3 points comfortably that decides it at the end. And yeah, you can say, but don't lose another game instead. Sure, but Liverpool only lost 1 game the other, like when they won the league, or was it 2 in the end? But still, for ages they were not beaten. So because of that reason, and us being ahead of them already, I think part of it in Tuchel's mind will be, a bit of that Jose mindset where it's like, yeah, we want to win, but it's also important we don't lose. So I think for that reason, I would probably agree that it's going to be that midfield 3. But Con, what about yourself?
I was like split. I said that before we did this, but after listening to you two talk, I think I agree. I think it will be the 3. And I think it will work simply because that number 8 in there, Kovacic, we might lose a bit of, we're losing an attacker with this, but Kovacic has been playing so well this season. 4 GNA in 5 games in the PL. He's really stepped up, and there's nobody in that City midfield that can cope with him. I feel like he's going to get a lot of space. He's going to cause a lot of problems. So, yeah, no. And with Kante coming off after 45 minutes, Tuchel bringing on Barkley instead of bringing on Kova in the game against Villa, it makes you believe that. And Jorginho's going to start.
Was Kova on the bench, though?
I'm not sure.
I think neither Kova or Jorginho were on the bench anyway.
Well, then then that even plays more into that they'll start today. So tomorrow, shall I say. So, yeah, no, I think it'll be the midfield 3. Even though, we've beat City 3 times playing the other way. But that midfield 3 is orgasmic. That's the word. It's orgasmic. When they came on against Spurs, it was beautiful to see. And you got 3 of the best midfielders in the league, So, yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah, it is fair. I mean, the one thing maybe I will say is, obviously, Kante, did play 45 in midweek when, obviously he's been kind of struck with injuries a little bit. But for me, it seemed more like, okay, because of the injury he just had, Tuchel wanted to give him a bit more of a run out to almost like keep his legs and his body a bit warm rather than cool off again, go a super high intensity game against City and pick up some sort of small strain again. So that's what it felt like to me. So that's why I would still be confident in Kante starting. I mean, we spoke about him earlier. Let's put him where it says the 9. I think all of us know and agree that Lukaku will and should start. The question is just, I put it here on the left now. No, let me put it more on the right side because that's where it's going to be. The question is just, who's that going to be? I mean, Zac mentioned Timo there. If without obviously his calf, tensing up a little bit towards the end of the game against Villa and him playing the 90 minutes there, I think in terms of just structurally and system-wise and opponent-wise, I think Timo makes more sense, especially with the midfield 3 behind them, makes more sense than Kai in a way. But I'm not sure. I just don't know. So this time I won't put my opinion out first because I just don't know what my opinion is. So, Con, who do you reckon is going to be the one next to Lukaku?
I think it's going to be Timo, just because how good he is versus City. But I will not be surprised if it's Kai. I'm just going to put it like that. I'm leaning 60-40 to Timo, just because how effective he is against that high line. And with Kovacic playing how he is, Kova can find him with a ball. And you've got good ball players. You've got Asby, Alonso. They might not always be the best at running down the line and whipping crosses, but they can keep the ball. And they're good at passing short and keeping it. So for ball retention, you don't really need Kai in that too with Lukaku, because Lukaku's great at hold up himself. So you can play a Timo Werner there. So for me, it'd be Werner, but like I said, I will not be surprised if it's Kai.
It makes sense what you're saying. It makes sense what you're saying, Zach. What about you? I know you just said about Timo, is he ready to start again or whatever? Because obviously for Germany, to be fair, he's played all 3 games. But, for us, he hasn't really had that many minutes until obviously that Villa game. But he's also German and he's also Timo Werner. If there's one thing he's fine at, is constantly running. So, he's probably fine to play. So I'd say he's available. It's just a question of will Tuchel pick him. But what do you reckon?
I'm probably slightly opposite. I again kind of like either or is in my mind, but I'm probably more 60-40 that Kai will play. I think the fact that Kai, again, I can't remember if he was on the bench or not for Villa, but the fact he didn't feature in that game at all kind of makes me think that, okay, he was resting him for the City game. I mean, he was the goal he scored in the Champions League, did it brilliantly, taking it past Edison, and was very key. And I kind of feel like if we're losing Mason Mount, who has that kind of who brings the midfield into the attack, then I feel like we might need that kind of player with Kai. But again, if Timo was there, it wouldn't surprise me. Just the fact that he mentioned that calf injury, him playing the full 90, makes me feel like he won't be starting. He'll be on the bench 100%, but I think it'll probably be Kai. And like Romelu and Kai are both still very quick players. Obviously not Timo Werner quick, but they are quick themselves, so they can be doing the running in behind between those two as well if needed. But I'd go Kai, but I mean I'm happy to go with either, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a weird one for me. When we haven't even mentioned another player, or I suppose another 2, in Hakim Ziyech, who obviously was poor against Villa. There's no hiding from that, and hasn't, to be like as great as he was in pre-season and as great as he was against Villarreal until he obviously picked up his unfortunate shoulder injury. People said it on Twitter already. He's doing a Ross Barkley. He was always great in pre-season, and then as soon as things heated up a bit, off he was. But he has a great record against City for us. Scored twice against them last season. So maybe Ziyech is even a shout. For me, the reason why I probably agree with Konzak is for Werner is because Mason isn't there. And, the thing with Timo, as much as we criticized his finishing often, and, I was, on the forefront of that very often, some people always said, he does the dirty work. And he does do the dirty work. When we have Mason, we don't really need Timo to do the dirty work because Mason does a lot of the dirty work. But I feel like if we don't have Mason, to not have Timo either, who's then doing the offensive dirty work? Not saying that Kai doesn't, but I'm saying Kai probably doesn't do it quite as much as Timo and Mason do. So I feel like for that reason, plus obviously that kind of the way I probably presume us to play with, playing the ball to Lukaku and then Timo can just make the run and go with it. And then hopefully because Timo's biggest strength, in my opinion, is his low crosses. I've rarely seen a player as good at low crossing, And if, Lukaku can hold it up late to Timo runs, Lukaku follows through and gets the low cross and boom, goal. hey, I can't really imagine any better things. I mean, we have different opinions. That's what we're here for. In the end, none of us will decide because Thomas Tuchel will decide. But I think it's going to be that. So I'm going to put that for now. But again, I also wouldn't be totally shocked at all if instead of Kovacic, just Havertz all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't be shocked by that either. It's a tough one because when you look at it like that, it does look very defensive. But then you saw the second half against Spurs and it just really wasn't. So, you know, it shows that football is about more than just formations, which is, I suppose, partly what makes it interesting. But the next thing I want to talk about, and I suppose for the time being, I will keep the lineup on screen just to, you know, make it more sense to discuss it. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, first of all, again, subscribe if you haven't already. Smash the like button, help me out with the algorithm. If you want to, use the super chat function, become a member if you fancy that. But put it in a chat. Would you agree with our team? What would be the positions that you most drastically disagree with, I suppose? But I heard someone just quickly. I was listening to the Guardian football podcast when I went to the shops earlier, and I can't remember who, but one of the guys was talking about, like, they were previewing this game a little bit, and they were like, they're expecting City to have like way more of the ball. I'm like, did you watch any of our games against them? Like, maybe they had a tad more of the ball in the Champions League final, but only after we made it 1-0, which obviously changed everything. Because in the games before, we actually had more possession. So I don't understand. Like, it's just this concept that annoys me. It's like, you know, a lot of the media, and I'm not going to say just in England, this is worldwide media, that you get into these roles, and I studied journalism, right? I don't understand where these people get it from unless, you know, the whole process of getting there has changed drastically, because I don't understand how you can call yourself a journalist and then have an opinion like this, which is just completely not based on facts. Like, how can you just say, yeah, probably City were going to have way more of the ball when we played them 3 times, twice of those, we had more of the ball and we were dominating things. And most people, I mean, maybe not City fans, but most other people would agree we were a better team in the final. Sure, the last 10 minutes we were sitting deep and, you know, they was trying their thing. But it's the Champions League final and we're 1-0 up. Obviously, we're not going to go all guns blazing to score another goal. That'd be stupid. That's why we win titles and City don't win Champions League titles probably, because we know sometimes you just need to defend, right? So it triggers me. It triggers me. But I want to put it into that. Obviously, we don't know for sure which City players are going to be available, which City players are not going to be available. But even if all of these doubt players are in the end going to be involved, they only returned to training yesterday. So would I be upset or scared if they are involved? Not really. But let me go with you first, Con. Obviously, we played them 3 times late last season. They came with 3 different systems and 3 different this, 3 different that. This start of the season, except against Leipzig, they've kind of struggled to score goals. And, you know, is it just that because they didn't manage to get Harry Kane or Ronaldo, is City not the threat that a lot of people thought they would be this season, or has it just been a slightly slower start to the season and they will get there?
Just before I answer that, bro, just to touch up on that point you said about that journalist, I think that's just a casual take. I think unless you're a Chelsea fan who watches every game, it's very easy to get into that narrative that Chelsea are like a defensive side because what we play.
But not as a journalist. Like, you shouldn't be.
Yeah, I know that.
As a casual fan, I agree, but not a journalist.
Yeah. But some journalists are casual because you can't watch every single game of every single team, you know? True. So I think that's the problem you have. So when you look at Chelsea on paper, you're like, oh, it looks quite defensive. And that narrative always goes along. And we know it's not true as Chelsea fans, but it is what it is. And with the City side, I just think Gundogan had a great spell at some point last season, didn't he? He scored a lot of goals.
Yeah.
But like then he sort of got out the goal scoring. Like Foden doesn't score much. Mason Mount gets criticised all the time, by the way, for the end product, but Foden doesn't get that label when he dries up. So we'll leave that at that. Sterling's kind of dried up now as well. He used to be, a 20-plus goal player, and that's kind of drying up for them now. So they needed someone in attack this season, I think. I don't think Grealish is that guy. I think he's more of that creator than a goal scorer. So 100 mil on Grealish before buying a striker was a bit of a PR thing from City, just to raise the profile maybe. I don't know. I thought Ronaldo would have been class for them. It's who they really needed.
It probably wouldn't be class for anyone.
Yeah, that's true. I just think, it's just the players who they relied on to get goals, like your Bernardo Silvas, your Mahrez's, they're just drying up a bit, you know, and they just needed that fresh injection. And without that injection, you know, we've seen it at Chelsea, it goes a bit stale sometimes, you know, and it happens in football. So, yeah, they didn't get the striker and it's hurting them. They should have just paid the money for Kane.
They probably should have done that. And before I put it to Zach there, like, you know, I know you, Con, are a huge fan of Jack Grealish. I'm not sure if that has slightly diminished now that he's at Man City compared to like I don't know, when he just was at Villa, right? But I'm already looking forward to it. Whether it's Reece or Christensen at right centre back, I'm already looking forward to that because Grealish will go down all the time because of what he does. And then they will have corners, free kicks, but they don't have anyone to be really dangerous. And we're great at defending these, especially with Mendy in goal. So we're going to be absolutely fine, I reckon. Because Grealish will constantly go down because that's just what he does. And that makes it so much easier for us to defend them, in my opinion. With Villa, that's one thing. You have their, Tyrone Mings and their F-off centre-backs. That's a threat. Not with bloody City. Do you know what I mean? What are they going to do? Bloody Gundogan score a header. I mean, I'm probably jinxing everything right now.
I can already hear the music in the background. Just zooming in.
Yeah, I'm getting clipped, but hey, we move. For now, I can still say whatever I want. But Zac, on a similar tone, I suppose. What do you think is the biggest threat about them, or is it just because they're just lacking goals? It's just that they are less of a threat. They feel like they are less of a threat to me when I've watched them this season.
I mean, I don't think I would ever call them less of a threat personally. I agree that they have dried up in certain areas. Obviously, Raheem Sterling isn't scoring the 20+ goals that he was. But just because he isn't doing that throughout maybe the season doesn't mean in one game he doesn't go supernova and scores a hat trick. Same for say Riyad Mahrez, right? I also agree as well. If they had a striker, it seems as if they're struggling without that kind of striker up top for them. But at the same time, I mean, you look at how we dealt with Harry Kane in the Spurs game of the weekend. Even if maybe them not having a striker will cause us issues. Obviously, Gabby Jesus has been pretty good, being played off of the wing. They've got so many players. One of the best things about Chelsea is that the opposition have no idea who's playing, so you can't really set up for. To be fair, the only player now that they can think about is Lukaku, right? As we kind of said, Lukaku is the only one that we went there and was like, he will start. And so they can kind of, I guess, make some sort of a plan for him. But the fact that he's one of the best strikers in the world means sometimes there's just no plan you can make for him. And it'll be the same for Tuchel, right? He'll look at that City squad and go, will it be Bernardo Silva? Will it be Riyad Mahrez? Will it be Phil Foden? Will it be Gabby Jesus? Will it be Ferran Torres? Will it be Jack Grealish, right? And to be honest, maybe Jack Grealish is only that kind of player, and maybe Mahrez as well, that will be in that squad. Obviously, they've got Kevin De Bruyne, who's fantastic. I think sometimes with these games, like City versus Chelsea versus Liverpool, it can just come down to which player does something ridiculously magical on that night. And we have several players like that. I would probably say City have more players that can do that. Kevin De Bruyne can just pick the ball up from 30 yards and put it top bins, right? Riyad Mahrez with his left foot. Jack Grealish could dribble past 3 players. So that's what worries me, is that even though as a team I think that we are better, they have a few more players that can just do something in the moment that gets them a goal. Whereas for us, I think it's more of a team play. Obviously, we have certain players as well, like Lukaku and Kante, and whether it's Kai or Werner. But for them,
even Alonso.
yeah, exactly. That's not to say that I still think we'll win. But I'm just less. I'm not as keen to put City down at the moment for sure.
To be honest, it's less City, it's more Grealish, because I'm still baffled by the fact that you pay 100 million for him. He's a great player, sure, but like Con said there, if they had a striker, buying Grealish makes all the sense in the world. Great player, great addition, especially with the big squad that they have already.
I think that would mean that I think sometimes with football, I think everyone looks at football and thinks because they make so much money and it's the top of the thing, they must be ran amazingly. And to a degree they are, but sometimes things happen, right? They would have 100% thought they were going to get Harry Kane, and so getting Jack Grealish in is the perfect mix. And how many times we heard stories where footballers say, I was going to move to this club, but in the end I moved to this club, or I didn't move in the end, I didn't get the transfer that I wanted. And I think that's the case for City. I think they put all their eggs in the Harry Kane basket, and they all cracked. They didn't look at maybe going for a backup striker in some way. I don't know whether it would be cheaper one, maybe, I don't know, for some reason the first name that popped into my head was Weghorst Werder Bremen in Germany. I don't know. I don't
I love that. Imagine City just turn up bloody Weghorst.
Exactly. It came into my head for some reason. But you know what I mean? Like a backup striker that isn't 50, that isn't 100 million. He's more maybe like the 50, 40 mark for that season. Because what I do really worry about is that they're just going to get Haaland in the summer.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I feel like unless Madrid blow everything and they don't actually turn out, they don't have any money next year. I feel like if they have money, chances of them buying Haaland is quite big. But at the same time, look at what bloody Benzema's doing for them. Benzema scored 8 league goals this season already. That's stupendous. They've only played 5 games. He scored as many league goals as the whole club of Barcelona have. I know Barcelona are in the mud, but still, Benzema is crazy. Benzema is crazy. So with that said, would they even want Haaland? Because what do you do with Benzema then? So you make a fair point there. You make a fair point. And, with a couple of the things you said of, the players that have a magic moment, without trying to speak for you, what I'd presume from that is maybe that's also why you maybe prefer Havertz over Werner, because Havertz is probably more that type of player to come up with a moment of magic than Timo is.
Yeah, I agree. Not to say Timo wouldn't. It's just with Timo's skill set, it's very much kind of running quickly. Like he's not, he can dribble, but not to the level of like Kai Havertz can. He isn't as creative as Kai is. And I'm like, when I think of a Timo Werner goal, it's not say from outside of the box, it's getting inside that box and kind of getting them one-on-one with the keeper at times. And whereas with Kai, he's got so many elements to his game about whether it is creativity, whether it is being able to shoot from distance, whether it is being able to take on for a man, whether it is aerially. Like I know Werner scored a header, but Kai is better. I think Kai's actually underrated with how good he is in the air. So yeah, like having like a Kai for those kind of moments. And to make the right decision the right time. Like obviously in the Champions League final, he could have decided to shoot early with an on-rushing Ederson, but instead he was cool, calm, collected, took it round him. Obviously it hit his hand outside the box or whatever, and netted it coolly. So those kind of moments in which I think we'll probably have in these kind of games against City, against Liverpool, as I mentioned, against maybe United, that's why I probably feel a bit more comfortable with a Kai as well.
It makes sense. It makes sense. The last thing I want to discuss before we get to like score predictions and finish this out is not necessarily because of the lineup that we went with, not necessarily a big problem for tomorrow. So we'll change it around so I can just discuss it, because I'm not sure if I've mentioned it to you previously, Con, but what I've realized over the last couple of games, over the last couple of weeks, and the stat came out, Mason Mount hasn't scored a goal in 20 games. And in that period had 3 assists, mind you, one of those was a Champions League winning assist. So don't be too silly, but still hasn't scored in 20 games. Kai Havertz sure scored against Liverpool and scored against in the Champions League final. But even Havertz is kind of, especially always being on the left of the front three, which I still don't really understand. But Ziyech all the same. Pulisic's been injured. Timo obviously got his goal the other day, but has kind of, aside from Lukaku, our forwards are the area we've struggled most. And I've said this the other day. Every formation has a bit of a weak point. And personally, I feel like if there is one weak point to the way that we play, it is probably the two, call them number 10s behind the striker, right? If there is a weak point, it's probably those two. And I just want to discuss why that is the weak point that it is. Let's just put the team that we've played more often than not, rather than for tomorrow. This is usually what we've gone for. And it's kind of not done enough for us. Like I said, Havertz could dribble like Kovacic, but for some reason he doesn't. Mount has good games. Mount has games where he struggles a little bit, and he's finishing. He needs to work on it. Like the other day against Villa, he should have scored that, from that outrageous Loftus-Cheek back heel. So, Con, what do you think is the issue why our 10s, or the two positions behind the striker, have kind of struggled a bit? And in my opinion, struggled more than last season. And I think as great as Lukaku has been, and this is not criticism of Lukaku by any means, we needed him, and it's still overall better for us. But I think those two positions also struggle more with the fact that we have a real striker now, rather than Havertz in like a false 9 role where it made everything a bit fluid. So first, like I said, first of all, why do you think they struggle more? Do you even agree? And if you do agree, do you have any like solution to that? Or is it just a case of we just need to, I don't know, people getting used to Lukaku more, and, just getting longer into the season and things getting a bit more fluid? What are your thoughts on that?
I do agree with what you're saying, 100%. I just think it's just the circumstance of each player. I think Kai is just always a slow starter in general. That's been something to known about him. Even when he was in the Bundesliga, he started off the season slow. So I'm pretty sure he'll grow into the season. Mount had a tough Euros. Didn't think he played his best football, and it's sort of carried on to the league form. But I'm pretty sure maybe give him a rest. Like, this injury is probably a good thing for him, you know, so he gets a bit of a rest for a game or two. It's what happens when you have young forwards, I guess, you know. Like, these are not guys in their primes. These are young guys, you know. Havertz 22, Mount 22. Ziyech, I know he's the odd one out there at 27, 28. But he's just come off an injury, you know. Like, he was in good form, and then he had that injury, you know, similar to last season. Was it last season? Yeah, last season. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't really say it's a system thing. I think it's just they need to get used to playing with Lukaku, get used to that focal point for starters, and then Kai will pick up like he gradually does anyway. I think Mount will shake off this bad form. I think Ziyech, I don't know, playing as that sort of inside 10 is not really his game. But I think he'll come good this season. I have full faith in Ziyech. I think Timo Werner will be Timo Werner. He'll always create that space for you. He will always, you know, play a part for the team. Will his finishing be there? Probably not. But I think he'll be useful for us in parts. Like, I will think he'll be useful tomorrow. And Pulisic, when he gets back, no doubt, you know, I love Pulisic. He's my guy. I love him. And he'll come back and do his thing, man. So I think people just need to remember how young these players are we're talking about. Because the human element does play a part, you know.
That is a very good point. Obviously, their age plays a bit of a role. And Clutch said it there in the chat. Big up Clutch, by the way. For Mount, I'm sure part of it is that he plays further forward than his probably ideal position is. But we've also seen him be absolutely fantastic. And, you know, some of it is, I'm sure, a little bit of form. And, you know, the Euros probably didn't help anyone. Let's be honest. As much as we all enjoyed it, the Euros, it probably didn't help anyone's form individually. Let's be honest. It's one of them. But by the way, I just got a DM saying John Stones, Emerick, Laporte and Rodri have all travelled with the Man City squad to London to face Chelsea. They were one of the few people that were doubts. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll be ready to start, but at least they're travelling in the squad. So that's something. At least they won't turn up with their kids of centre-backs that played against Wickham, I suppose. But Zach, on that same question, first of all, do you even agree that those kind of 10s behind the strike have struggled a bit so far this season, if anyone? Because if you look at all the other positions, all of our defenders have been great. Our goalkeepers have both been great. Our wingbacks have all been great. Well, aside from Chile, hasn't really had many minutes. Have all been great. I mean, midfielders, we're hyping all of them. Jorginho just won the UEFA Player of the Year. Kante is, we all know, incredible. Kovacic just had a fantastic start to the season. Lukaku has been incredible. But any of these forwards behind the striker, you wouldn't really say about any of them they've had a fantastic start to the season, would you? So, I mean, maybe you disagree, but maybe, at least I would have said that. But do you have a reason for that, or do you have a solution for that?
I mean, I think they've been average, to be honest. I don't think they've definitely been bad.
No, I would agree. Yeah.
I wouldn't say they've, as I said, I wouldn't say they've set the world alight. But I mean, it's what happens sometimes. I mean, they've spent two years or a year the last season essentially not playing with a striker, as Con kind of said. So it takes time getting used to it and takes time adapting. They've also played a lot of football. For Mason Mount to go all the way to the World Cup final, Euros final, and then only really have two weeks off, then come straight back at it. I wouldn't be too surprised if he's a little bit fatigued. Maybe that's what how the injuries come about and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I mean, one of my I love Mason Mount to bits. I've said it many a times. I think every Chelsea, well, majority of Chelsea fans do,
as they should.
Yeah, as they should. And the one thing that I've always said, if there's ever a criticism, is about he needs to score more goals. He needs to contribute more on that end of it. Creatively, he's fantastic. He is one of the best players in the league, personally, for me, and for his creativity on the ball and picking the right pass and producing some ridiculous.
Some of the chat will come at your throat right now, but I agree.
Fair play hey, everyone's got their opinion. But yeah, for me, it's his goals. Like he needs to kind of the fact that last year our top goal scorer was Jorginho on 7, and mainly they were mostly penalties. It was an issue. Like and as he said, age, I 100% agree. Like it'll come, and that's for Havertz as well. But for Mason, like he wants to be trying to get to that period of getting 10 Premier League goals in a season. Like that's the next thing for him. Like he's doing everything else so well with his teamwork and dropping back and defending as well, and his creativity. But for him, it's that. As for Havertz, like. I said it. I mean, maybe bringing it up again isn't the best time, but I made shouts that he's going to win Player of the Year, maybe Young Player of the Year, for this season. And I think he's after the Liverpool game, I thought he was impressive. Like, okay, he didn't necessarily have the best of games against Spurs. Was it Spurs?
Spurs, yeah.
Yeah, Spurs. But like, you can't also expect players to have unbelievable games every single time. Like, as you kind of mentioned, they're only human, and some games he'll be average, a couple of games he'll be even below that, but hopefully a decent proportion will be good, and some even better. And that's honestly how I kind of feel with Kai, and I think he in front of goal doesn't actually have that issue. It's just about now. I think at the moment, now that Lukaku is there, everyone is thinking, give it to Lukaku, give it to Lukaku, give it to Lukaku, and if anything, I kind of want them to go, maybe I should take the shot. Maybe I should kind of have that, have the effort on a goal, because it does seem at the moment we've gone from not having a striker to having a striker and then trying to play for that striker in every single scenario. Whereas sometimes it should be let Lukaku make the run that takes the defender that then you can go into and take the shot. So yeah, I don't think it's anything to be worried about. I honestly don't, and I just think over the next couple of games we'll see.
That is fair. I mean, I definitely agree on the Havertz thing. Havertz, I would definitely back that. It's at least a Young Player of the Year thing. When I see him play recently, and the Liverpool was a bit of an exception, I agree. Even though he looks more confident in general since the whole Champions League final goal, I'm sure that helped him. You know, obviously struggled a bit. You know, moving not necessarily on performance, maybe as much as Timo, but you know, from what I've heard of him in interviews, whether it was on the Chelsea mic'd up thing or other things, that there was times where he struggled last season, you know, obviously not being able to bring his family over after moving. At least he moved with his girlfriend, not by himself, but still can't have been easy. But I still feel like he needs a little bit more confidence, because like I touched on earlier, Havertz is an incredible dribbler. But how often do we see Havertz dribble? We barely ever see it, and I feel like that's part of the confidence that I'm still requiring for, like looking for from him, because he receives the ball and he seems to be stuck in two minds a couple too many times. For me personally, it's like, okay, do I go first time pass back to where I came from? We build quickly. Do I turn? Do I run? Do I do something myself? And then in the end, it kind of just slows things, and that's not a criticism of him by any means, because I feel like it just needs that little snap of like extra confidence. And I don't think it's a case of for him goals, because like Zac mentioned there, goals is not the problem for Guy. He will get us goals. If he gets in a finishing position, he's way more likely to take those than Timo is, than Mason is. Maybe not like Lukaku, but probably second, you'd say, in terms of finishing. Like if you put Mason and Kai together, they'd be out of this world. And they're already out of this world individually, if that makes sense. But that's the only thing I'm kind of hoping for from Kai. And I think once Kai finds that, I think that makes everything a little bit easier. I also believe, just because I painted it there, it would help Kai if it was that way. But I also think that Kai's best position is neither of those, and Kai's best position would be here. But we don't have that position while we play a front three, while we play a back three, but then where's Mount? Unless we do like that. That's when you can put Kai here. And I think he would thrive from that. But you want Mount in your side. Like, I know some people in the chat and some people on Twitter don't, but realistically, you do. And by the way, just a quick stat before I ask you guys for like score predictions and stuff. This is the first time in 114 games for Chelsea that Mason Mount, since basically making his debut, misses a game through injury. Even after Coquelin in that Champions League game under Frank Lampard for Valencia nearly tried to break his fucking ankle, still, he played the next game. So this is the first time he's missing a game through injury in 114 games. And not a dig at Pulisic, but you know, it can also be that way, lads. It can also be that way. But, you know, I just, you know, even a Pulisic, you know, I mentioned there, in some of these games, I wish we had him available at the moment, because sometimes we're also, I think, lacking that player that is happy to go into a one-on-one. I feel like neither Mason nor Kai, that's their like biggest thing they do or their biggest strength. Take a player on, win us a penalty. We haven't had a penalty this season. When Pulisic doesn't play, we have way less penalties. always the case in my opinion. Sure, we might get a handball one. Those are different. But for like fouls as such, I think Pulisic plays a big part in us having those. But I think we've spoken enough about both ourselves and about Man City. So with the game coming up tomorrow, how do we see it going, Con? How do we see it going?
Easy 6-0 in my opinion, bro.
6-0, there you go.
I think we'll win like 2-0. As good as City are, and I agree with Zac, they're always a threat. You can never downplay them. It's just that individual brilliance in one game, it can change everything, innit? And you never know, a deflected goal, a set piece, you know, it's football, and they're a great side. But I'm really confident in us right now. Like every single position seems to be playing well, besides, you know, 2 positions you mentioned. But I just can't.
And we're potentially only playing one of those tomorrow, so we'll have even 9 great players.
Exactly. And I can't see us losing in my head because I don't want to, for a start. And I generally feel like right now we're just in that zone, and Tuchel's got us playing just, you know, where we don't lose, you know. At worst case, I think we'll get a draw, but maybe it's a bit of too optimistic, you know. But I'd rather be too optimistic than pessimistic, you know. Where's the fun in that? So I'll go with 2-0 Chelsea.
I agree with that. Also, by the way, fair shout by Jazziu. Sorry if I butchered your name, but Werner also hasn't played that many minutes. He was also one of those guys that won us a lot of penalties last season. Very, very true. Even though he's not that great at 1-on-1, he tries. And even though sometimes he wouldn't get past people, once you're in the box, he gets fouled in and it's a pen anyway, I suppose. So, you know, you'll take those. But Zac, on what Con just said, I personally probably agree. Probably would go for a 2-0, even if it sounds a bit boring. It's just our defense is so good. The one thing City have been struggling with is probably scoring goals. And we also have Lukaku. So compared to a Champions League final, which we probably could have won 2-0 as well, imagine just Pulisic gets his chance in. Would have been a bit of a more comfortable last few minutes to the game, especially for you, I'm sure, in the ground. But how do you see the game tomorrow going? Is it confident as well? And do you reckon we're going to get the 3 points?
I'd like to think, I'd like to. My prediction will be that we get the 3 points. I always feel safer saying we'll concede, because then if we don't, I'm like, nice, even better. So I would probably go with I'll go with a 3-1. I'll go with a 3-1. I'm really interested to see how Romelu Lukaku is up against that City defense. Nothing, honestly, God, at the moment, there's nothing better than seeing him pin back a defender. It's so entertaining to watch as a football fan, and even more so as a Chelsea fan to see, because that kind of striker I haven't seen that in so long, and really the only one that I can think of in the league is Chris Wood, and he's obviously not getting the service at Burnley. So yeah, I'll go with a 3-1. But then I could also see a 1-0 win, a very Chelsea-esque kind of Tuchel performance in that one. But yeah, I'll go a bit expansive. I'll say a 3-1, and I'll say 2 for Romelu and 1 for Jorginho.
Maybe we'll get a pen. That will be interesting. Just quickly, do you guys think Jorginho will still be on pens? Because I've kind of been wanting the answer to this, because we haven't had one.
As I said that, I just realised that probably Lukaku would take the penalty anyway. But I'll say Jorginho will score from outside the box. Why not?
Why not? Like he did at Fulham that 2 seasons ago. Why not? I mean, I could also ask you for score predictions for Brentford-Liverpool, because we're going to have the same result anyway. So, you know, if they win 4-0, we're just going to batter City 4-0. The problem is we play first this time, but it is what it is. But yeah, I agree with what Zac said there. Like, my personal go-to prediction is always 2-1. But we've been so good defensively that I'm like, it's almost silly to predict us to concede, because how are we going to concede? But then obviously, hey, anything crazy can happen, like at Liverpool, you know, touch wood again, that nothing stupid, red card penalties, stupid things like that happen again. Because like I said, I still firmly believe we would be on maximum points right now without that red card. You know, by the way, also the only goal we've conceded in the Premier League, and that wasn't even from open play. But yeah, I think, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to round it up here. If you're still watching, I appreciate you a lot. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. We're getting ever so closer to 12,000 subscribers. We're like 60 away, 70 away, or whatever it is. So get subscribed if you haven't already. Help us reach to 15,000 as well. Every single new subscriber counts. Smash that like button for me if you haven't already. Doesn't cost you any money, barely cost you any time. So why not? And it really does help me out. Like I said already, I'm not sure if Zac is planning to go back on his YouTube or whatever, but you know, if I'm going to link something, I did link his YouTube channel. So if you want to, check it out down in the description below. Of course, check out Con's Twitter as well. Thank you, boys, for coming on. I appreciate both of you a lot for that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and so we can get the 3 points tomorrow. And I'll see you next time.